In May 2020, now this is at the height of South Africa's COVID-19 lockdown, one man, a relatively unknown man to the public, sparked a firestorm with a single social media post. This Johannesburg-based businessman flaunted a jaw-dropping fleet of luxury vehicles, three of which were Porsches, a Lamborghini Urus, and a Jeep Grand Cherokee, all worth a staggering 11 million rands. But in a time of economic hardship, this tone-deaf display of opulence didn't just turn heads, it ignited complete outrage. That one video didn't just catch the eye of the South African public, but it also caught the eye of the South African Revenue Services, the Hawks, and the Special Investigating Unit. What they uncovered would unravel a web of corruption that shocked the nation to the core. Now, if you're interested in establishing and finding out who exactly this individual in question is, stick around because today we're exposing what happened during those days of COVID-19 and the rampant corruption that went around surrounding the PPE tenders, this including this one particular tender given to this one particular individual by the name of Hamilton Ndlovu. So stick around as we untie, as we unknot, as we untangle this web of lies and corruption surrounding Hamilton Ndlovu and his PPE tender saga. Okay, just to give a bit of background on this story. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, this would be the period between 2019 and 2021, the national government basically needed to provide personal protective equipment to the general public so that they could combat the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic. So naturally, the government would have to issue out tenders, as they normally do when they're doing such business. Now, in early 2020, and this is at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the National Health Laboratory Services awarded personal protective equipment contracts worth 172 million to companies linked to Ndlovu. Now, obviously, from the jump, you can tell that there's something very wrong with this situation here because normally that's not how tendering works. Eventually, the SIU's investigations later revealed that these contracts were unlawfully secured through the abuse of emergency procurement procedures. Now, shockingly, only 15 million was actually used to procure the personal protective equipment that was required by the general public, while nearly 90% of the funds were diverted for Ndlovu's personal enrichment. Okay, so from the background, we've already established that Hamilton Ndlovu fraudulently received PPE tenders to the tune of 170 million. Now, the big question here is how exactly did it manage to do that without any detection from the authorities? Well, the SIU's investigation reveals that it was quite simple actually. Hamilton Ndlovu basically used a network of fronting companies and his direct entities, such as Hamilton Holdings, to secure these inflated PPE contracts. In a nutshell, contracts were awarded without any competitive bidding, and excessive prices were charged for the PPEs compared to market rates. Some deliveries of these PPEs were fraudulent, some were mismatched quantities, or there was just none delivery at all. Payments received from these PPE contracts were largely diverted for Ndlovu's personal benefit. This included luxury properties, vehicles, and investments. Basically, in a nutshell, that was the scheme. Okay, so now we know what we know. But I'm sure in your mind you're probably asking yourself, how exactly do we know what we know? Was it that video that was posted that ignited all of this, or is far more deeper than that? Well, it turns out that actually there was a whistleblower. The Gauteng's Health Department suspended supply chain chief director Thandi Pino blew the whistle. Yes, she was the whistleblower. She basically alerted authorities to potential irregularities in the PPE procurement, which further intensified scrutiny on Ndlovu. That viral video that we spoke about earlier on prompted SARS to investigate Ndlovu's financial affairs, suspecting tax evasion. In September of 2020, SARS executed a provisional preservation order against Ndlovu and 5 other associated companies. This action right here was based on Ndlovu's outstanding tax bill from 2016, estimated to be around 36 million. Simultaneously, the Hawks were also on it because they started probing allegations that Ndlovu benefited from irregular PPE contracts, including one in the Eastern Cape. Now, generally, when a crime has been established and confirmed, normally punitive measures follow suit soon after. However, in South Africa, when it comes to corruption cases, that is not usually the case. Basically, as South Africans, we hardly see justice for corruption cases. However, in this case here, something different happened. There was an effort to actually recover most of the money, if not all, that was ill-gotten or received through illegal means. For instance, a special tribunal was set up which eventually declared that the contracts were unlawful based on non-compliance with Section 217 of the Constitution, which basically mandates that the public procurement must be fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. The tribunal mainly relied on the principle of unjust enrichment to order repayments. As a result of this, Ndlovu and his entities were jointly held liable for the repayment of the 170 million that they had stolen. To recover the misappropriated funds, the tribunal ruled that the assets preserved under the interim orders will be forfeited to the state. These included a luxury vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz G63 AMG, and Scania trucks. Those recoveries demonstrated the thoroughness of the SIO's investigation and the tribunal's commitment to ensuring public funds were returned. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, what we learn from this story is that a man called Ndlovu fraudulently received PPE contracts during COVID. The scheme involved using several companies to actually acquire these contracts. Now, thanks to his stupid friend for posting that viral video during COVID and the bravery of Thandipino for blowing the whistle, the authorities finally started working on the case against Hamilton. So basically, if it wasn't for the friend's stupidity and Thandipino's bravery, Ndlovu would have walked away scot-free, having stolen 170 million from the public purse. Now, according to reports, the SIU did manage to retrieve a bulk of the money stolen. However, at the time of the recording of this video, Hamilton had been in contempt of court but was not arrested. Why? How? We do not know. What we do know is that he was supposed to spend at least 30 days in prison, but he never showed up and was found in contempt of court but never arrested. But anyways, man, we shouldn't really be surprised about this. I mean, we all know that in South Africa, stealing from the public is never a crime. Yes, stealing our money, stealing your money is never considered a crime. Even worse, when it's really like huge amounts. I mean, you hardly hear cases of people in South Africa being charged for corruption and actually being successfully prosecuted. But anyways, man, you've seen the video. I'm sure you know about the story also. So just hit me up on the comment sections and tell me what you think about the whole thing. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. That's the Lowdown Corruption Bust series. Catch you on the next one.